How much does people's online reaction influence the performance or what you do? I mean, can you say that you would do the exact same thing if there was no video camera?
Oh, that's a rough one. I think so, but it's that's a complicated question because the camera did not come into the picture to broadcast the performance. The camera came into the picture to have an objective recollection of the events that happened. And the live streams came about because those objective records were often deleted or stolen, and then you can't get the hardware back to get the video off of it. So the live stream was initially started as a safeguard against police misconduct, right? Which the recording initially started as a safeguard against police misconduct, right? So that was an escalation that ended up happening. The performance and broadcasting that to YouTube, it was always about self-protection. We're going to broadcast this so that those dirty pigs can't come back later and say that we jaywalked, which they would do, right? And they have done.
Let me fix this.
I wanted to ask him, before the sentencing, did you think he was going to get 12 years?
No. Before the sentencing, we had no idea 12 years was even a possibility. Now we knew that it was a possibility. We didn't think it was a likely outcome. I mean, he didn't do anything, right? There was no physical action. There was no actual violence. I mean, he wasn't going out and buying equipment, nothing like that. He just said some things because he was pissed off, right? We didn't think that 12 years would be a thing. We've seen murderers get less than 12 years. We've seen.
Sound okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Loud?
Do you can you explain what made him angry to make those threats? Like, what was it?
Yeah.
That was
Oh yeah, I can do that.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
Oh God. So what made Eric so angry that he made the phone call that got him 12 years? It was me. I did that. So I had gotten a ticket in Denver for filming the police after 11 o'clock in the park. I went into the park to film police while they were harassing the homeless people, which is, that's part of the story that we cover on a regular basis. And we go into the park, and there was three of us. Eric wasn't even there, right? So we go into the park, us three, and two of us got citations, and one of us got arrested. And we were going into court to fight that, and I had filled out an application for a public defender because I'm a broke ass, and they wanted me to provide some information that they're not even allowed to ask. Whether or not I'm on disability, whether I'm not getting food stamps, things of that sort. And there's a whole list of things that they're not supposed to ask for, but they do anyway. And Eric had just beaten a supreme in the district court or state court. I'm not sure which, but he had just won a case about this particular public defender's office here in Denver going outside their scope on who they provide public defender to. And they would ask these questions, and if you answered that you did get any of that, then they would want a record of that, of how much you get and things of that sort to determine whether or not you're poor. And they had some reason for it. I think it was because, they're not using that information to determine your eligibility, but it helps them decide whether or not, if you qualify for that, then you qualify for this. But the law says that they're not allowed to ask for that. So if you go in there and say, "Hey, look, I don't have a job, I don't have any income, I don't have any, rental properties, any of that thing. I don't have any money, I don't have any assets," then they should take it at that, because the punishment for lying on that form is already a crime. So if I'm going to lie on this document, then prove it and then convict me of the crime of perjury. Don't deny me an attorney because you wanted some information that you're not allowed to have. There's a whole thing on this, right? He spent years fighting for that. And then we go back in there after a year the ruling had come down, and then we went back in there a year later, and I filled out the documentation for a public defender, and they denied me. But they didn't tell me. Actually, I filled out the application, and then they asked me for the information that they're not allowed to ask for, and I told them that they're not allowed to ask that. The lady behind the desk got upset, and I pointed out that there was supposed to be a page 2 for the document, which was another thing that Eric had fought for, and they had corrected for a time, but then they slipped back into their old ways and used the old document. It's a fucking clusterfuck. So for all those reasons, we were upset, and then they kicked us out of the room. And I had asked the deputy came in to kick us out, and he said, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "I want to turn in this document. I want to submit this document." And he took it from me, and then slid it through the thing. And in one of the greatest episodes of office agility, this lady stood up and put her hands in front of the window, and that paper went like this and slid over her hands and fell into the floor of her office. And I said, "That document has been submitted, and I am out." And I walked the fuck out of the room. Once it slid past that window, it was submitted legally. Great. I didn't even do it. The deputy did it. It was awesome. So we left. We got the fuck out of there so nobody got arrested. And then I go up to court 3 months later, which is another trip back into town, which I don't want to do because I fucking hate town. We go in there for court, and we have, every time we have to go to court, it's an ordeal because we have court support. There's like a dozen of us, and we're all in different courthouses because we're all in trouble all the time for, jaywalking, or usually jaywalking, actually, a lot of jaywalkings, things like that, stupid shit. And then it'll take 2 years to fight it, which they'll dismiss before trial. But I was going in for court, and the prosecutor had come up to me and was asking me how I'd like to plea, and I said, "Well, I guess I have to talk to my attorney about that first." And I was like, "Who is my appointed attorney?" And they said, "Oh, well, it says here that you didn't qualify for one." I'm like, "How did I not qualify for one? I have no money, none, and I was homeless." Right, so like all the reasons that you should have one. Anyway, they said that because I didn't submit enough information. Right. On that note, some of the information, if you're not on Medicaid or any of that stuff, they'll ask you to go donate blood at the blood bank and then bring them the receipt to show that you're so broke that you have to sell your own bodily fluids to make $1 so that you can get a court-appointed attorney. So you really have to sell your own blood to get a lawyer, which is kind of what we already knew anyway, isn't it? But they denied me, and I was upset, and I sat down, and I waited for the judge to call us up for our case to be called, and I tried to explain it to the judge what had happened. Probably could have been a little bit more clear about it. I don't think it really mattered because he didn't seem to care, and told me that I have to comply with whatever the public defender's office says I have to submit, and just totally ignored that I had already done that. I didn't get to bring up that they had kicked me out, that I did do that. It was just whatever. So I felt defeated, and then we had like the judge and I had this little tiff over how you're supposed to walk in the courtroom. Like there's a direction apparently that you're supposed to walk. I don't know. I still don't fully understand how that, I understand the concept. You're not supposed to walk in the middle of the courtroom. But I thought that I was doing the right thing by going around it, and that wasn't the right way. I was supposed to come, I don't know, whatever it was. I was aggravated, right? So I left out of the courtroom, and I flipped him off. And he called me back in and gave me 30 days contempt of court, direct contempt of court, which is non-appealable. And I didn't have an attorney. I didn't even have an attorney. So now I know that I could have asked to post bond at that point, which would have been denied, but at least I asked. All these little things that it's whatever. And so I got 30 days in jail, and I was homeless with 2 kids, and we were doing the best we could. We were okay, but we didn't have like a stable structure to stay in. So we were doing a lot of moving around and stuff like that. And Yeah, that caused that was the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. Because now I'm in jail. Who's going to take care of the kids? Now we have to have family from Texas come up here. So absolutely sent a ripple down everything. Should I have done it? No. Well, maybe. I guess that's not up to me anymore. You know.
So that's why Eric. Can you say so? That's why Eric called.
Yeah, he was upset because I didn't. They refused an attorney, and then I was imprisoned for 30 days over something silly like that, and then they wouldn't let me out, and then they posted bonds, which by arresting me made me miss court in Texas, which I was about to go to. I was packed up and ready to go to Texas. Just the simple thing that a judge can do can absolutely eviscerate everything you'd worked for, and that's what happened to me.
And that's why.
That's why Eric was so upset. Eric was upset because I'd already been going through a lot of shit, and I was doing everything that I could to just maintain. And then we have some asshole judge who doesn't want to listen, come in and ruin it even more. So that was absolutely a disaster. Absolutely disaster. Then they tried, while I was in jail, I missed a court date, and then Texas wants to extradite me, which would be another few weeks in a van. When I got out of jail here in Colorado, I would go back to Texas, and as soon as I walked in the courthouse, they arrested me again because I wasn't there, even though they know that I was in jail because they tried to extradite me from the jail, and we had to post a bond to get me out of jail from Colorado so I could go to Texas to be arrested and post another bond in Texas. So it was absolutely a fucking disaster. It was.
When Eric was being sentenced, you were shocked at the sentence he got. Just describe how it felt, how it impacted you when you heard those words.
So when the ruling came down, when the decision came down on Eric's sentence, and what I thought that we knew he was going to get some time because of course he is. But 12 years was kind of a lot. I think we were all shocked by that. Even people who hated him were shocked by that. It hasn't really sunk in, but everything's changed. We're all terrified of our government and how easy it is. So this is just the culmination, right, with Eric. It's just this is actually the first time in about a decade that he's not being prosecuted. So at what point was he supposed to quit? Right? They kept fucking with him. And that's pretty sad. I don't want to be that. I know a lot of people, a lot of stories of people who thought they were going to do great things, make changes, positive changes, and a lot of those guys are in a jail cell somewhere. I can't. I don't know what they expect when they keep locking up all of our peaceful leaders, right? So if you feel disenfranchised or outcast or marginalized in some way, you don't really have anybody to look up to anymore. And the reason is because they're all dead or in a cage, which is the same thing. Yeah, they effectively killed Eric Brandt.
They killed his voice.
Yeah. And it's not just Eric, right? He just happens to be the one that I know the most. And that's sad because he doesn't deserve that. What he said is objectionable. I have some problems with it. I understand why he said it. Mm-hmm. Right? God, I wish that we had a better system, because prison's not good for Eric. There's no reason for him to be in prison. I think if things had lightened up a little bit, that he wouldn't have gotten like he did. He was so upset. But every single day of his life was inundated with people telling him their shit story. and he's empathetic. And that was his empathy was his downfall. He cared too much about everyone else and not at all about himself. And that's why he's in jail. And that's why that's why he did everything that he did. From what I can tell, right now he's in prison. And the first thing he does when he calls is ask about other people's cases and how they're going, and asking for us to pull up case laws that he's seen in other cases that might help somebody, right? And then make sure that those people get it. He's completely focused on other people and their problems, and that's double-edged too, because people, we get a lot of requests. Like, holy shit, we get so many people wanting help, right? We get so many requests for help that we can't even read all the emails, let alone cover the story, in a manner that dignifies the situation. And a lot of these stories are so fucking terrible that it's hard to get through. I mean, I said that, and one came to mind. There was this lady in Texas right after I started publishing videos, and she was messaging me about her husband had attempted suicide. Well, he succeeded, but at the time he was still alive. He shot himself, and his family was home. They called 911, and the police showed up first, and then they didn't bring gloves. This is Roy City Police Department, right? So where all my problems are coming from. And the police showed up and they didn't have gloves, so they wouldn't even touch the guy. Wouldn't help him at all. Wouldn't even tell. Oh, so the lady cop that showed up came in and said, "That's disgusting. I can't do that," and left. Went outside and waited. Right, the other guy wouldn't do anything and wouldn't help him and wouldn't tell her what to do to help. So they had to wait for the EMS to show up. And then, so she's devastated, and they wouldn't let her ride in the ambulance, and they wouldn't drive her. And it was like, well, you guys were no help at all. As a matter of fact, I think you might have even hurt the situation. Right? And I can't tell that story. I can't. It hurts me. I can't do that. But it's easier to tell other people's story than it is to fight for your own, right? Because we have an emotional attachment to us, to ourselves, obviously, to our friends, right? So yeah, we get fucking passionate and pissed off when our friends are getting jacked with, because I get upset and pissed off when a stranger's getting jacked with, which leads into every single day we get new information about something terrible that's happened, and we can't do anything about it. Only thing we can do is scream and shout and wish people a happy fuck the cops day.
Tell me a little bit about people are so desperate for help that they'll just ask some person they don't know on YouTube if they can help.
Because they're desperate for help and nobody else is helping them. I think people reach out to us for assistance because they've tried what they thought they were supposed to do and it didn't work. A lot of people, by the time they come to us, they've already reached out to local media, the newspapers, made complaints, made records requests, and then they're coming to us with their stories about, oh, well, they won't give me the video. They gave me the video and it's edited, right? Things like that. So they come to us out of desperation.
Are there a lot of desperate people?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a ton of desperate people. You're looking at one.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Does any of this seem rational to y'all? Yeah. It's not rational. It's not. But what else are you supposed to do when everything seems out of control? It's out of control, and we're doing the best we can, the best we know. Unfortunately, there's not a school, there's not a training course to peacefully change things. So everybody's got their own idea of how it should be done, and they're all wrong.
Do you think
Has it been worth it for you?
No. No, it has absolutely not been worth it. Like I said earlier, this wasn't a choice. I didn't do this on purpose. I got suckered into it. I got forced into it. I got pushed into it by my local police department because I didn't want to get screwed. And the only way I knew not to get screwed is by having enough people behind me that saw what happened. And when I first started filming, and I posted my first video to YouTube, I had 0 subscribers. And then I shared it, and a couple of my friends, and then I don't know how the video just went crazy. James Freeman saw it and shared it, right? But that's kind of the point of the whole social media thing. That's why we post stuff, because it only takes that one guy to see your stuff, and that's why why this community is so powerful. That's why I think we get as much heat as we do. Because you see the guy out there with a camera, you see the Eric Brandt on the corner with the sign, right? But what you don't see is all the people who are sitting there watching it, waiting and ready to aid in any way that they can. And the only way that a lot of people feel like they can help is by making a phone call. And 5 years ago, that was probably very effective. These days, not so much, because they've learned to tune it out, right? Which gets right back into the original problem on why there's cop watchers to begin with, because someone complained and they were ignored. So maybe the government is fucking themselves on this one. We're losing battles every day, right? But I think we're going to win the war. Because every time they arrest one, our biggest moments are absolutely not interesting. They're not videos that anybody will ever see, right? It's when everything goes to bad, the videos get a lot of views, right? But that's a small portion of what we actually do, right? The people who think we're just being assholes, no, most of our time is sitting behind a keyboard, writing emails, making a request, formulating, compiling the information, trying to get it into a package that's consumable, and then it goes nowhere. So we'll spend weeks or months composing a video, and then we post it, and it doesn't do it very well. Most of Eric's best stuff is in a 3-hour live stream where he's just reviewing somebody else's case, right? Absolutely not what he's known for. He's known for being the fuck the cops guy out there acting an ass of himself. If he wasn't that guy, then nobody would know him for the other guy, including me, right? So you have to get the attention. You have to stomp your feet every now and then before anybody will even know your name, and if that's even important. But what it is doing is every time they arrest somebody, that video will get a few thousand views, and maybe one person will be encouraged to pick up a camera, or not a camera, but encouraged to do something. Maybe they're a well-to-do person who decided that they're tired of this shit too, and they're going to run for council.
So hold on, just last question.
Yeah.
Going forward, what do you want to see happen to this movement, if it is indeed a movement of the auditor police copwatching? What's the future?
So the future of the movement, I still don't know what to call it. Whatever this is, the future of this movement is, I would like to see it not be a thing anymore, not be necessary. I want us to not have a job. I want us to be irrelevant. I don't want documentaries being made about police brutality. I want rainbows and unicorns, but that's not our current reality, and I think I hope that our efforts will not be in vain, and that enough people will stand up and demand that changes be made. And hopefully they'll do it in a peaceful way, right? But history's a little bit skeptical on that one. right? And we cover we say a lot of things, and we reflect a lot of what we get back. So a lot of hateful comments about you should die and things like that. But if you want to talk about death, well, then there's a lot more of us than there are of you. And if history says anything, you can only beat people so much before they pick up a fucking rock, right? And I don't want that. That's a terrible idea. Of civil war is bad enough, right? But then you got neighbors against neighbors. Boy, nobody wants to see that. And now you've got government against its own people. That is a terrible future that has been prophesied in my entire life, right? My grandpa was telling me about, at that time it was race wars. He was a bit racist. I don't know if I should clarify that. And that's okay. That's fine. Because if he wasn't a racist, then I wouldn't have such a strong opposition to it. Absolutely distasteful, some of the things I heard coming out of that man's mouth. Right? But I'm glad he said it. Boy, that went the opposite way for him, didn't it? Right. So, I hope that our movement fades away into obscurity because it's not needed anymore. Unfortunately, I think it's going to fade into obscurity because we're all getting put in jail. Look around, most of us have only been at it for a couple of years, and if you find somebody that's been at it for 5 years, they're a veteran. Where are the rest of them? Where's Jimmy Justice? Haven't seen him in 7 years. One of the first people I know that I was aware of that was walking around with a camera holding government accountable and hasn't posted in 7 years. I don't know where he's at. I hope he's fine. Right? Then we got people who moved out of the country. A lot of people moved out of the country, seeking political asylum in other countries, from America, from their home. Right? So it's complicated. I hope we fade away. I hope we're not needed anymore. But if the growing trend in cop watchers is any indication, then we're more needed now than ever. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of us left.